It just, nothing, she is very dumb. So stupid.
Today we are talking about A Court of Thorns and Roses by Sarah J. Maas. I'm so excited about this. So Acotar was published in 2015, almost 10 years ago, which I didn't realize until I looked it up, but it's been around for a long time. However, it didn't really become super popular until the rise of TikTok and BookTok and books going super viral on that platform. And then I would say starting in 2020, maybe 2019, this book outsold so many other books. It really just blew up. I think that this book kind of defined the genre of romantasy for a lot of people. This is what they think of when they initially think of romantasy. It also has given a template for a lot of other writers, and a lot of other books try to emulate the plots in this, the tropes in this, just because it was so popular and successful. Now a lot of people are chasing that success as well. I read this series for the first time probably in 2018 or 2019, and I had never heard of it. I had never heard of Throne of Glass or Sarah J. Maas before reading A Court of Thorns and Roses, and I saw it on the internet and I got sucked into the hype and I read them and I absolutely loved them. This was kind of my first new adult fantasy book. I had never read something like this before and I just became absolutely obsessed. I was not immune to the hype in any way, but this has really stuck with me for a long time. It's still one of my favorite series. I will say there are absolutely flaws in this series. It is not a perfect book series. It is hyperbolic, it is silly, it's campy, but it's also really fun and exciting, and there's just so much going on that you're kind of trapped in the story and you can't escape it until the book is finished. You just have to get to the end of it. So I love it, and I know a lot of people out there don't like it and don't even really love what it's done for the book industry as a whole, but I think if you find enjoyment in something like this, then that's fine and you should continue to enjoy it. Before I started this YouTube channel, my husband said that if I got to 1,000 subscribers, he would read this book series and come on here to talk about it. As I have read these books over the years, I have naturally talked to him about it. I actually don't know a single person in my life that has read these books before, and so I've never been able to have a conversation with somebody about it. So I always go to him and just kind of talk and vent my feelings and process things that are happening in the book, and he's been great at listening and having fun with it. But today is the day he has finally read this first book and he is coming on here to talk about it with me, so let's get into it. Cool sweatshirt.
Thank you. Cool sweatshirt.
Thanks. Are you excited to talk about this book?
Yeah.
Okay, I have some questions I'm gonna ask you.
Okay.
I want your total unfiltered thoughts and opinions.
I'm ready.
Okay, what was the last book that you read before this?
It was either Return of the King or Dune Messiah.
So you're not unfamiliar with fantasy.
No, in the last year, I've basically gone through like Lord of the Rings. When Dune Part 2, the movie came out, I went through Dune and Dune Messiah. Before that, it was Night Circus, which she made me read, which was excellent.
Do you usually prefer to read fantasy? Like, have you read that always, or is it kind of a new thing for you?
I think I've always loved fantasy, as I know she's talked about. I also grew up reading Percy Jackson and read Harry Potter for the first time when we got married, so I do some nonfiction sometimes, but if it is fiction, it's most of the time it's fantasy.
When you realized that you finally had to read this book for the first time, what was your first thought? Were you excited? Were you dreading it? Were you nervous?
I don't think I was dreading it. I mean, honestly, it's not that big of a book. The font's not even that small or scary or anything. And it was a pretty fast read. I knew it would be a pretty fast read. And just listening to what you've said before, you've called it a fast read before, the whole series. By the way, I've already started this one. Check that out. They're all pretty easy to read. They're not too big. I knew they were gonna be pretty gory too, and they are. Good Lord.
Okay, well, how long did it take you to read this?
In reading time, like 3 days, but those 3 days were spread, I don't know, maybe 2 weeks.
Yeah.
It's hard to put down once you pick it up, so I read it in like 3 long sessions of like, I don't know, 100, 150 pages at a time or something.
Yeah. Okay, so what was your overall impression of the book? Did you...
Poor Claire.
Stop! You're jumping ahead. What was your overall impression of the book? Did you end it and be like, okay, yeah, I liked it? Or did you end it and be like, I can't believe I have to read 2 more books in this series. Like, where do you fall on the spectrum?
I have too many questions. There's no way that you could stop. There's no way that you could stop. Before I even told her that I was done reading Acotar, I already moved on to this one because, yeah, the ending was so not abrupt because the story arc of the first book was kind of completed. There's too much about the world that I feel like I don't know that I would like to find out eventually. It does what the first entry in a series should do in that it's caused me to be intrigued and I want to read the rest of them. There are a lot of things that bothered me, however, that I'm sure we'll talk about. But yeah, like the world, it introduces you to the world and introduces you to at least some of the characters, I guess, and the world's really cool.
Segue into the next question. What did you think about the world of Prynthian and all of the, the setting of the Feyre?
I think it was last week's video where she said if she had to pick any fantasy world that she could live in, she would pick this one. That's a whack answer. That is insane because... Yeah, okay. There's nothing that happens in this book that is sunshine or rainbows or cream. It's just gory violence and blood and bloodshed everywhere. The animals want to kill you. The beautiful elf fairy things want to kill you. The other people want to kill you. And you're starving and it's wintertime. But all jokes aside, the world is interesting. There's almost like a historical part to it where there's like a conflict between the Fae and the humans that's kind of alluded to, and we get some backstory but not a lot of backstory. That's interesting, and now they're sort of like segregated, and the book, for once, the map in the beginning I actually looked at because there's not like 100,000 locations on here. It's pretty simple, so even before you get to page 1, it was like, oh, the mortals and the Fae are split apart. What's that all about? And there's like all these different courts, and goodness gracious, what is Highburn? It's not like I just said, I just read Lord of the Rings, which is like so comprehensive and dense. This is not dense, but the world is given to you in smaller bite sizes. Like I said, it's a really easy read, and the stream of information is such that you don't feel super lost all the time. The world's interesting enough, but it's not off-putting. You're not just like dumped a bunch of information that you don't know what to do with at one time, which is nice.
Yeah. Because it's first-person perspective, you're learning about everything as Feyre learns about everything.
As a character who, and I think
doesn't know much.
She works as a protagonist in the first-person sense because she's heard like legends of Fae, but is just a mortal. She is a mortal, which is exactly what we are as readers. Like we've heard, we know some fairy tales about the Fae, but you obviously don't know the intricacies of, I mean, I don't know if you know about the Fae really are like, but you've heard the legends and you're immortal, and she kind of like experiences the story through that. That's awesome. If it's something more like Night Circus, where every single character is sort of like in on it, and you're not in on it as a reader, you're just like kind of, at least I was confused for like 99% of the book. And at the very end, you're like, oh. Okay, it's refreshing. After specifically something like Night Circus, I have like PTSD from starting a new chapter and you're like, oh, I gotta figure out what's happening in this chapter. And instead here, it's just like right off the bat, in the first 10 sentences, I was like, oh, I guess I understand what's happening. And then there's no time jumps yet. I don't know what's gonna happen. There's no time jumps yet. It was very easy to follow. And I think the world is cool. I'm interested in the world. That's probably the biggest reason why I'm already reading the second one.
Okay, let's get into some character-focused questions here. What did you think about Feyre as the main character?
Okay, I was just singing her praises as far as her being effective as a protagonist. She's not a protagonist that I read and intuitively I'm like, oh, that's what I would have done, because she makes some stupid decisions constantly.
She does.
In the very beginning, in the first act, well, first of all, I think it's cool that she is a female protagonist who is not, she's not super bookish, because I feel like usually with protagonists in contemporary fiction, and specifically female ones, they're like the bookish ones and everybody else are like brutes. But this is the kind of the opposite. She's the one that's like
she's
gruff.
the brute.
Yeah, she's the grizzled one that goes out and shoots stuff, and like Nesta's worried about appearances, and Elaine's the like perfect princess, and Feyre's kind of like the one that takes the brunt and actually has to face the cold winter and all that.
Even though she's the youngest.
She is?
Yeah.
Oh.
She's the
I
baby.
thought Elaine was the youngest.
No, Nesta's the oldest, and then Elaine, and then Feyre's the youngest.
That's tough.
Yeah, it's tough.
So in the first act, you're given that. She shoots the wolf. You know, you're sympathizing with her because her life seems very hard. Then she just became annoying after that. Besides her shooting the wolf, she doesn't do this is probably hyperbolic, but I'm pretty sure she doesn't do anything to move the plot along at any point after that. Because she goes and spends 350 pages like eating pastries and drinking wine and throwing up also. And then at the end, even the trials, like the lever pulling thing, she obviously didn't do anything in that. She did figure out the worm thing, but Lucien also was like, watch out on your left. And then she had to move it. She would have died there if it wasn't for Lucien, who's, by the way, the best character. And then at the end, she just has to, in cold blood, murder a couple people. I'm 54 pages into Mist and Fury, and she's already more complex and more interesting in this one. In Thorns and Roses, consistently there's situations where she's a human in a Fey world, and she's told, hey, if you do that, you're gonna die. And she's like, okay, and then goes and does it. There's like the party, there's the party of the
birthday party?
The Earth party, I don't know. And Lucian's like, you're probably gonna die if you show up to this. And she goes to her room and pouts for like 45 seconds, and then decides that she needs to go to the party. And then she like puts her hood over her head and then just walks amongst everybody. And then whenever the vampire freaks take her aside and they're gonna like eat her or whatever, she's like, oh no, why is this happening to me? It's like, because you're dumb, dude. There's that, and then there's the like wine, and it turned out to not be that bad of a thing because Tamlin was like super into it. Because Lucian's like, don't drink the wine, that's a bad idea. And she's like, watch me, and then drinks like, what if it was poisonous? What if she died right there? What if you can't consume Fey wine?
There wouldn't be any more book.
Yeah, I'm gonna stop harping on her in a second here, but my last point I wanna make is that maybe this was just me, but it felt like her internal monologue, since we get her thoughts in her brain, didn't always match up to what she would say out loud. It seemed like, or at least I remember there being situations where Lucian's like, hey, do you wanna go and hang out in Fairyland where it's beautiful and we don't have to do anything, we don't even have to hunt, we can just ride and talk, and then her internal monologue's like, this place is beautiful and I wanna do that and I miss hunting, but what comes out of her mouth is like, screw you, I'm going to my room. You're like, why? Why are you doing this? Yeah. No, I do have one more thing, actually. Okay. Tamlin shows up, and he's a scary beast. He's not a wolf, right? He's something else.
He's like a lion.
He's like a lion thing. He's golden. Yeah. And takes her, and we don't know at this point why. But it makes sense that she is off-put by the Fae because she's been told her whole life that they're like dangerous and they consume humans and all this crazy stuff. So she ultimately is gonna fall in love with this creature thing. And it's sort of like a slow burn romance, but also it felt like in the 300 pages in the second act where all that happens, it feels like she went from this beast is threatening my family and I hate him to like saute me with veggies and consume me with a fork and knife immediately. There was nothing in between. She is so thirsty. All right, we can move on. I think I'll continue to like her more. I think she's gonna get better because she kind of just suffers in this book and causes others to suffer as well.
I will say I think that she does become a more proactive character in the next two books,
and that's fine. I think in the first installment in a fantasy world, that's fine. I think that, like I said, because she's experiencing the world, she doesn't have to move the plot along. Yeah.
Do you have any specific thoughts on Feyre's father or Nesta and Elaine, like family life as a whole?
I'm sort of interested what's gonna happen to Dad, but not a lot. He could not show up ever again and I'd be okay with it. Pretty sure he's gonna die. He's gonna die, right? He's gonna be killed by something terrible. His backstory is interesting, but it's more interesting because it's all by proxy. It is part of Feyre's childhood and past hurts, but not super interested in him. Elaine is, I don't know if they're gonna do something with Elaine. She might slip into the background, or she might also become like a freaking Fae warrior princess that grows flowers and reads or something. Nesta's actually the one I'm the most interested in. Nesta's my second favorite character.
So when you first started this and you were in the very, very beginning, like before Feyre went to the fairy realm, you hated Nesta.
Yeah, because she's horrible. She's the meanest. She's so mean. And then, but she kind of has, I don't know if her character so much changes as much as our perception of her changes through Feyre's point of view. But in the beginning, she's kind of like the simple, only concerned with like what dress she's wearing kind of thing. into she's the only one that understands when she has to go back to the spring court. And she's
Yeah.
like, I'll cover you in that and I'll take
Yeah.
care of everything. She's like a little bit more complex than initially we think, which I thought was kind of thrilling. When she goes to the spring court, you sort of shove off her family as like, oh, that's her origin story. We're never gonna see them ever again.
Yeah.
But Nesta is sort of changing, or not so much changing, but becoming more complex was awesome. I don't know how I feel about Dad. She didn't even say bye to Dad. She almost died and didn't say bye to her dad.
Okay, what do you think about Tamlin? Tamlin. Old Tanny.
I don't know how I feel about Tamlin. I guess I don't have that many thoughts. He doesn't really, we don't get a lot of his actual character. He's just kind of like the Beast. He's actually the Beast. And she's Belle. Yeah, he's kind of just described immediately as this gorgeous, dangerous animal. And that's kind of just, he operates in that little paradigm the whole time. Every decision he makes and thing he does is animalistic. I don't know. He kind of just, yeah, he's a beast. He's a beastly man.
What did you think about the relationship between Feyre and Tamlin and how that developed as a whole?
It was fine. I don't know what to say. They just fell in love. They just got real thirsty. And then bad things happened, and then they made it out.
What about Lucien?
This is the best character in the series. Okay, we haven't read the rest of it, but there's no way he's ever gonna get topped. He's got like a tragic backstory. He only has one good eye. He's got some red hair. He's like kind of crafty. You don't exactly know what his deal is. You're not worried that he's some kind of like double crosser and he's a bad guy. He's like a son of Hermes situation where he's like, you know that he's on your side, but he also might like steal your possessions or something. I like how he misjudges Feyre's ability to get away from the bogey. No, it wasn't that thing. It was the other one.
The surreal?
The urn. Oh.
Huh?
What? The CERN?
CERN?
What is the thing that she brutally murders? Who cares?
I honestly don't remember.
He's like, I'll save you, and then misjudges how close he needed to be because he feels like he's not as old as Tamlin. He hasn't seen as much of the world, or at least he doesn't know as much about humans. And so he's constantly misjudging how she will react and how she'll do in situations, which I think is interesting. Tamlin versus Feyre having like a Fae versus human relationship wasn't super interesting to me because it felt like he already understood how humans work, but Lucien is always being shocked by things that Feyre's doing. And me too as a reader, because they're stupid. I thought he was the most interesting. I'm very excited to see what happens with him. His backstory sucks. I mean, like, sucks as in it's tragic. It's very, very sad.
Very sad.
And he's from the Autumn Court too.
Yeah. What did you think about our antagonist, Amarantha?
She was scary, I think.
She's not really revealed until pretty late in the book. It's just kind of talked about like, oh, the blight. I
really could have done without the blight misdirection. If they just always would have said, what is Arathra? Mothra. I wish they would have brought Mothra in earlier because I don't know why it was the blight for 70% of the runtime. Why couldn't we have just been talking about her? That would have built like a little bit more tension. She ended up being kind of scary. A lot of her decisions didn't make sense either.
Why? What do you mean?
She's super mad at Tamlin because Tamlin doesn't want to love her back. So she lays out this insane thing. He has to fall in love with a human who has ice in her heart, who shoots one of his friends in cold blood, and then she has to come and live with him. And then she has to say verbatim, I love you. And he has to wear a mask the whole time. This is what happened. She's like, why don't you love me? And he's like, I'm not gonna love you. And she's like, fine. And then just lays out all of the conditions for him to get out of this curse. That's insane. Why wouldn't she just kill him or something? And then she's like super evil and willing to not do what Hybern wants because she's just wants to get back at Tamlin and Feyre. And instead of just torturing them, if she answers a riddle, she can go away. Why? And also, there's two things that happen. There's this riddle, and then there's also the 3 trials.
Yeah.
So the whole time you're like, do we have to do both of these? How is this gonna work? She does the trials, and she's like, oh, I messed up the wording. I'm actually just gonna torture and kill you. And so you're like, oh. So when she answers the riddle, that's not gonna matter either. But the riddle is like a cheat code, enter. I don't know, it didn't make a lot of sense to me. She's like one of those villains that has the good guy on the ropes, and then the good guy's like, oh my gosh, what is that over there? And then she's like, what? She's like, just nothing, is very dumb, so stupid. But you could chalk that up to her being like insane. She's not like the Bond villain intellectual, she's like unhinged,
She's
crazy.
unhinged, for sure.
Which is fine, yeah, I'm good with that. And I'm always into a big, bad, scary bad guy that dies in the first book, and then you find out that they were a pawn. They were General Zhao to Fire Lord Ozai, basically.
Yes.
I thought she was a spider. I pictured her as a spider, yeah.
Why?
I don't know. She was a spider to me. She was not humanoid.
What?
I don't know why. She was a spider the whole time. Like a spider from the waist down. Like Dwayne Johnson in The Mummy, kind of.
Why? Does Dwayne Johnson become a spider in The Mummy?
He's like a scorpion or something.
No, he's
The
not.
Mummy 2. Mummy Returns.
No.
I don't even know if that's what it's called. Yeah, there he is, dude. Oh my god. Yeah.
What is that?
That's her. That's Mothra. She is...
Mon Mothma.
Mon Mothma, yeah. That's her.
This is a video game, right?
That's so funny. No, that's some infamous CGI. Anyway, what was your next question?
What did you think of the character of Rhys?
Rhys is bad news. I think that I'm supposed to like Rhys, but I don't. I really don't. He's bad news. He's manipulative, and you know what's gonna happen too? I can smell it. He's gonna be Snape. Later, he's gonna be like, oh, well, I had my own curse where I had to be mean and weird to you, and then you had to tell me that you loved me, and after that happened, then I can be nice to you. So thanks. There's gonna be some weird reason why he's a freak, because he is a freak.
Why? Why do you think all that?
I don't remember. He gives me the creeps. Oh. He shows up and he's like, I can heal your arm, but I'm gonna own a quarter of you. That doesn't make sense. Just heal her arm. And then, but it's like, oh, in Fairyland, every time somebody heals you, you have to make a barter. Why couldn't she like rake his yard? Instead, she has to live a quarter of her life. Is it a quarter? Is it a week? It's a week out of a month.
Yeah.
And you know what? I'll stick up for Feyre in this instance. She's gonna die. She's gotta do it. But Rhys is being a manipulative freak. We don't like him here. We don't like him.
Well, there's clearly some history between Rhys and Tamlin that we don't fully know about yet. So he could be doing this to Feyre.
Bro, he interrupts the wedding right away. Jerk.
Yeah,
but maybe not, I don't know.
Her inner monologue in the wedding is literally somebody get me out of here.
I know.
We can't talk about that yet. We have to focus on this book. We'll get to that next time.
I don't like him.
We'll get to that next
He
time.
scares me. Anytime a beautiful elf man shows up and is mean to you, it's not good.
Okay, I have to read a text that you sent me at one point.
He is, yeah, we don't like him.
You said, if Feyre ends up with this Rhys Jack, I'm gonna be upset. His star.
Yeah. I knew we were in trouble as soon as she was with the vampires. She was with the freaking vampire things,
yeah.
and then he showed up and she said he's beautiful.
The most beautiful man she's ever seen.
Yeah.
She's never described Tamlin that way.
Well, yeah, but what about his heart? It's made of stone, by the way. He's got a rock and it's okay. Yeah.
Moving on. So those are kind of character-based questions. Now let's talk about the plot. Going back to the beginning.
How did he bleed if he had a rock as a heart?
Who?
Tamlin. He gets stabbed and he bleeds.
So what happens?
He's got a little sedimentary rock in there.
No, listen. She has to stab Tamlin as the last one, but the whole time, Tamlin has been saying because of this curse from Amarantha that his powers are tamped down, basically. Like, he can't use all of his powers.
Right.
So Feyre is like, well, if I kill him, like, that's why he can't heal. He can't heal himself as much. That's why he's, like, bleeding more. It's because he doesn't have the extent of his full powers, which is also why he's never been able to get the upper hand on Amarantha. Feyre makes the connection that's like, I have to kill him, but if I kill him, the curse will be broken. He'll get his powers back. He'll heal himself. He won't die, and then he can kill Amarantha.
But it's supposed to end when she says I love you, which she does like 5 times and nothing happens.
Maybe she doesn't believe it until the
Okay,
time.
yeah.
Okay, going back to the beginning, what do you think about Feyre's backstory? We kind of talked about it, but she really does fall into the like poor human suffering, gets rescued to the fairy realm. Like, do you think that that was a good place for this trope, or was it kind of like, I've seen it a million times, this is annoying?
No, I'm down. I mean, it's pretty Katnissy, but I also have not read a whole lot of female-led romance fantasy, so I haven't been subjected to a lot of it. Romantasy. I haven't been subjected to a lot of it, so it's only the second time, really, that I've experienced it. It's hard not to, a lot of times, think that she is very similar to Katniss, and that she, like, is the one that hunts, she's got the bow, she's mean to everybody. Complicated love triangle thing.
Complicated love triangle?
I guess not. Tamlin's gonna die, dude. He's gonna get killed. Because you wouldn't read this if it was a love triangle the whole time, so
It's true, I hate love triangles. I absolutely hate them.
Yeah, her backstory works for me. I think I would have been tired if it was the opposite and she was like like royalty, where she's like,
Yeah.
she's royalty, but she wants to cut loose. I think that I've seen that too many times. I'd rather her be the grizzled poor girl.
I think it's interesting when she's in the fairy realm because, at least in the beginning, she doesn't actually want to be there. She feels like she's forced to be there against her will, but at the same time, you can kind of tell there's a part of her that doesn't want to go back because her home life sucked so badly.
Yeah.
So she's like,
Yeah,
am
yeah.
I guilty for enjoying some of the luxuries that I have in the spring court? But I'm also here as a prisoner, basically, but I also don't want to go back home because that was a horrible place. So
Yeah.
I think that is kind of an interesting dynamic.
Yeah, it was
Because
interesting.
in like Beauty and the Beast, what this is based off of, Belle loves her home life. She loves her father. She
Yeah.
wants to go back. She's striving to go back. Whereas this, she's like, I don't really want
There's
to go
more
back there.
yeah, it's more complicated than that.
Yeah.
And then Tamlin sends her back for no reason. He's like, 2 more days until this curse is broken. I probably should just delete my last chance. We don't need it. Fine.
You also kind of talked about this already, but what did you think about the method for Feyre getting into the fairy realm? Like, she is hunting in the very first scene and is looking for a deer and then like accidentally kills a wolf kind of thing.
Like I kind of joked about, I think that Tamlin's prophecy or Tamlin's curse and the way he gets out of the curse is kind of crazy. But it works to get us started. I mean,
Gotta start somewhere.
I'll take it. It is insane that he has to send out his friends to die. It's pretty sad that the dude, Arlo. I did feel a little something whenever she realized that's why he didn't try to kill me and he just looked at me. Because he probably knew before anybody
It was a suicide mission.
Yeah, but he loves Tamlin enough that he was gonna sacrifice himself. And when Feyre like went to go and finish the job, he looked at her and was probably like, this might be her, and then died bittersweetly. I felt a little bit for that little wolf man. The rest of the curse is whack though.
Okay.
Whack.
What did you think about the spring court ritual Earth Day party Calendar?
I don't remember almost anything about it besides being annoyed at Feyre for going to try and join after Lucian tries to save her life again. And she's like, I'm gonna go anyway. And then she's like eating a scone at midnight and gets bit on the neck. I don't actually remember much. So Tamlin, I guess, mated with somebody and then killed her? I didn't get that. He shows up with blood and he's like, I need you. Put that scone down. I don't know. Yeah, I read through that chapter and I was like, oh, okay. I don't get it. But I do like how they have holidays. That's kind of fun. The humans don't have holidays and the Fae took all of them.
Let's transition to Under the Mountain. Feyre gets sent home.
Bro, yeah.
She decides to go back to the fairy realm to save Tamlin and the spring court, and Nesta helps her get there.
She talks to, yeah, it was Alice. She shows
Alice.
up and Alice is, I like Alice too. Alice is cool.
Alice is cool.
We like Alice.
We like Alice. So
She a tree.
Yeah.
She's a whole tree.
Okay, so Feyre's under the mountain. You can talk about Claire now.
Poor Claire. That kind of sucked. If Feyre didn't experience some pretty intense, like, regret over that situation, I'd be concerned. But she is.
She is.
She is a little bit for that and for stabbing innocent souls. Yeah, that was tough. As soon as she gave the wrong name whenever Mothra was asking, I was like, oh, dude, she's gonna get so killed.
So what did you
Is
think
she gonna
about-
come back as like an immortal goddess? In the third one, they're gonna be on the ropes and Claire is gonna show up. Anyway.
What did you think about the 3 trials? So there was the lever one.
Yeah. Well, there's the worm,
the Midgard
the sandworm.
the Midgard worm, and then stabbing them.
Yeah, I mean, if you need 3 brutal trials for someone to do, those are pretty good. Did she know that she was illiterate, or was that part that just happened to?
Amarantha?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think she knew.
She knew.
She knows all.
She knows
She
all.
knows all.
Yeah, the trials are insane, but I think she's just unhinged enough to just think that's fun. All the Fae are down and under the mountain, because in this one she finds out that there was like millions of them
So
in the dark.
Amarantha was like a general, very high up in the military for Highburn. She basically kind of works her way into all of the courts and kind of plays the diplomat and is very manipulative, just like power grabby, and she tricks them all. She gets all of the like high lords and the high fae, which are the most powerful people in the realm. She gets them underground and traps them and curses them and, you know, whatever. And then Tamlin has to try and break the curse for everybody. But there are lots of fae and fairies that are not under the mountain. But basically, like, the world leaders are trapped for 50 years.
Yeah, I'm excited to learn more. I feel like I don't know. I don't know a lot of the politics yet It feels kind of random. Like when random people would show up from other courts at Spring Court. We need to learn more about that.
What trial do you think was the most intense? Like, what was the craziest one?
Probably the worm.
The worm, where she's just like running through poop.
Poop.
She is.
It was the smelliest of the three, so it was like the most visceral as a reader. I don't know why
really
smells
thinking
are.
about it.
Yeah. The worm is terrifying.
Were you just picturing a sandworm the whole time?
I was actually picturing the Alaskan bullworm from SpongeBob. Yeah, and it's like crawling after her, and she has to figure out how to kill it, and it's all gross. And you know that if she scratches herself, she's gonna get infected, and like.
Right, and then she has to sit in that cell afterwards and just like be
and rot.
Covered and rot, and everything's getting infected, and it's so gross. And then our old guy Rhys comes.
No. He shows up and he's like, I can heal you by snapping my fingers, but you're my slave now. And everybody's like, oh, Rhys, so great.
Okay, what did you think about Amarantha's death? That conclusion, was that satisfying? Did that feel like
it was
good?
It was very satisfying. I already complained about how her plans are whack, but she's evil enough. Honestly, for Claire's sake alone, I wanted her to meet a violent end.
Yeah.
And she did. My boy Lucian throws a sword. I mean, who's the real hero? It's Lucian for sure. She gets that whole sword in her face.
What do you think about Feyre becoming High Fae? Basically dying.
Yeah.
And then coming back to life as High Fae.
I think I called that.
You did. You predicted that she was going to become High Fae. You even said High Fae. You didn't even say Fairy. You were like, Feyre's going to become High Fae.
Yeah. We just talked about this before this morning. I wish they would have at least alluded to the mechanic of how the other High Fae can get their little golden marbles and drop them, and then she can become High Fae, because that felt kind of random. I guess I knew it was gonna happen, but then she died, and then I was like, how are they gonna bring her back? And then, oh yeah, we can do that thing. We can do that thing that brings people back from the dead. But what about the other people she stabbed? Couldn't they turn them into High Fae? Were they already High Fae?
They were already fairies.
Can't you turn them into like new High Fae? This is the thing. I don't know.
Well, yeah, I don't know
what the rules are yet. So
I don't know. I don't know about that rule actually, because
it felt like there was a lot of tension of like, oh my gosh, our protagonist is dead, and then 2 sentences later she's just back.
Well, the thing about High Fae is that they don't die the same way that humans die.
I'm probably gonna find more out.
So Feyre dying, like her neck snapped. That's how she died, is her spine was severed basically, and that's how she died. But like for a High Fae, because they have like healing abilities, they don't die that way. You have to like cut their head off or stab them in the heart to like be dead. All right, what did you think about the writing style? You've been waiting for me to ask you this question.
Well, no, it was nice after. I love Night Circus. I don't want this to sound like I love Night Circus.
Yeah, you're not making it look very good.
I loved it. It's one of my favorite books I think I've ever read. But it is exhausting because at least my little tiny narrow attention span is incapable of keeping track of all the different timelines, and this was so simple and easy to follow. So the writing style was like kind of like a breath of fresh air. A couple goofy things. I didn't know that the watery bowels thing is a thing, and I didn't really think that much about it. It was more of like when I'm in a tough situation, would I describe my bowels as watery? What does that mean? Is she actually peeing herself or something? What I did notice is that someone's throwing up in every single scene, all the time. Someone's always throwing up.
No, they're not throwing up. They just like want to throw up.
Or she's got a throw up corner in her, which makes sense. It makes sense, but there would be tiny little things. Like she would pick up the wrong jam to put on her scone, and then it's like I had to choke the bile back down to my throat. And I'm like, what do you mean? You're okay. Get rid of the bile. There's so much bile. Yeah, it wasn't like the most profoundly beautiful writing style ever, but it gets the job done. I'm down with it. Some of the ways like Tamlin's collarbone was described was kind of crazy. A little bit too descriptive.
If you could ask the Surreal one question about this book and get an answer to it, what would it be? What would be your question?
I can know something. I can pull something from the future.
Yeah, that, or something you have a question about, something you're frustrated. It could be anything. You've read this book, you need an answer to a question, and you trap the Surreal with what, like a chicken?
Yeah, chickens and water.
Chickens and water.
What is Lucian hiding behind that eye? I think there's like a little nematode that's like controlling him. Honestly, I need to know what's up with Rhys. I need to know what his angle is, because I don't like him right now, but there's probably more underneath the surface. Yeah, I need to know more about him. I got another one. I'm gonna trap another one.
How many are you trapping?
I want more of an understanding of the magic system.
Yeah.
Who's capable of what, and this makes total sense. This isn't a critique or anything, because we're experiencing everything from Feyre's point of view.
And her pace,
But,
like what she learns,
yeah,
we learn.
There's not a understanding of who can do what. There's more of a comparison.
Yeah.
Because in the beginning, she's like, well, Lucian's pretty powerful. I've seen him. But then Lucian will say something like, oh yeah, Tamlin's way more powerful than me. Then she's like, okay, Tamlin's more powerful. But Tamlin's afraid of Mothra, so Mothra must be super powerful. And she's afraid of Hybern. And then there's ends up being this like spectrum where you don't really know who's capable of what, but you kind of know what the hierarchy is. I want to know like who's capable of what specifically, because we know that when she wakes up as High Fae, she's like stronger and faster, and she can heal. And I would imagine she's like more athletic, and maybe her brain works faster or something. But can she cast spells? Can she throw fireballs? Like what are we doing? What are we capable of?
That's a great question.
Yeah, I know. We're gonna find out.
That's a great question. Do you have any predictions for A Court of Mist and Fury?
Yeah, Tamlin's gonna die. Rhys is gonna end up being Snape. Nesta is gonna become High Fae. We'll meet a couple new characters. I think it's gonna be Empire Strikes Back. Like Hybern's gonna give them a swift spank, and then the last book will be Return of the Jedi, where we have a final confrontation where Elaine will become High Fae and will die. This will cause Feyre to lose her mind and go on like a killing spree, and then she'll realize that
Feyre actually becomes Amron.
No,
no.
no. She goes on a killing spree and then realizes that although she's now High Fae, that's a very High Fae thing to do, and she embraces her humanity once again and gives mercy to Hybern.
Oh.
And then Hybern then kills her.
Oh.
But then they bring her back with a mechanic that we didn't know about earlier. Turns out Hybern's a good guy who also had a curse on him, and he had to be.
She actually falls in love with Hybern.
Yeah.
And he's then.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I think you honestly nailed it. Everything, no critiques. So I'm so excited for you to get to this book and the final book, but mostly this book. This is my favorite book in the series for sure.
Oh yeah, you know what? There's like one more thing I need to talk about that I think is interesting. We have bows and arrows made of wood.
Oh yeah.
And we have daggers, but Feyre uses a toilet. And eats scones at midnight. I actually like the vague time period.
Yeah.
And there's not a ton of energy put into describing what time period we're in or making it modern. It's somewhere in between, and that's fine.
Well, it's time to move on to this. And we will be back with another one of these videos where Jake will talk about everything in A Court of Mist and Fury. So if you have any questions for him,
Oh boy.
feel free to comment those so they can be answered in the next video. Thanks for coming on my channel.
You're welcome.
We'll see you next time.
Bye.
Bye.